Welcome to the GC BizCast, a collaboration of J. Whitney Bunting College of Business and Technology and the Department of Communication at Georgia College and State University. Here we discuss important topics with today's business leaders and educators. We produce weekly podcasts from our beautiful campus in Milledgeville, Georgia. We're excited that you've joined us. Our conversations should inform you and entertain you. The views expressed are the views of the individuals on the program and do not represent the views of Georgia College and State University. So, let's get started.
Hey guys, I'm your host, Sam Jones. I'm a senior management major at Georgia College and State University, and I've been on the GCSU BizCast for about 2 years now. And today we have a very special guest with us. He worked at Sabo Technologies. He co-founded Cryptus, which is Europe's first cryptocurrency accelerator. And he eventually founded and now is the CEO of Promptmaster.com, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, based out of Hungary.
Yes.
Okay.
We're located in Hungary. And just a bit of a sort of the crypto accelerator was co-founded, and Cryptus was a crypto tax advisory firm.
Okay,
those two different companies. But I did have about 7 years in the blockchain space, which I'm in a love-hate relationship with it. Sometimes I really love the technology and the implications of it. It really allows me to sort of dig into the economic research part of what I like to do, because, when you design token systems or cryptocurrencies, there's a lot of mechanism design, a lot of game theory in theory, and then you go out in reality, you start working with most people in the crypto space, and then you just find a bunch of adult children with too much money on their hands, and you get disillusioned really quickly.
Right. Okay. So can you give the viewers a quick intro into yourself, like your background, your obsession with AI, or passion, I'd say. Say passion.
Sure. It's really weird how people talk about passion and technology. It's just a bunch of code and a bunch of circuits, but for some reason it really captivates the mind. So I grew up in southeastern Hungary, and I launched my first business when I was 21, and I ended up leading a company of my own, which was dealing with machine learning. We use machine learning algorithms to predict viral spread of news articles. And then we fed that data back to govern and direct advertisement decisions for media companies. And we ran that company for 5 years. And because I was young, I was cocky. There was a lot of hubris. After I raised I think a couple $100,000 and had signed a few household name clients. So I successfully navigated the company into the ground, and then I got into the blockchain space and emerging tech aspects of tech. So I spent a couple of years there. Founded an accelerator. There was an advisory firm. I did some management consulting. Mainly, my most experience is in software product. I mostly served at startups around Series A level as head of product or lead product manager, depending on the company structure. And then basically when ChatGPT came out last November, I just kind of
immerse yourself in it.
Yeah, completely. I had the flu during Christmas, so I couldn't go back and visit my family. So I was literally just laying in the bed with my dog next to me and just building chatbots using the OpenAI API. And when I came back in January, I was like, I need to find a professor to teach me this. And, the rest is history.
Right. So I've also got a few questions slated up for us. But before I get into that, can you tell the viewers a little bit about Promptmaster, what you do with that?
Yeah. So this is basically the continuation of my previous story, because what happened is that in January, started working with I called with my friend Dave. We've known each other for about 5 years now, And I also called up a professor, a docent at the Frankfurt School of Finance, who has been teaching machine learning and deep learning for God knows how long. And I started having weekly meetings with him. And after about a month, I was like, okay, I think I'm getting it. Like, I had a couple 100 hours experience with ChatGPT, and I started getting the crux of it. So I'm like, okay, what's the opportunity here? And really quickly we realized that being a software person, I'm like, let's build something. But then I was like, everybody is going to build something, so let's just teach people how to use the stuff that is being built. So a month later, we had our prompt engineering course put together, which was basically an amalgamation of the professor's knowledge, not even our knowledge. And within a month, we made about $30,000 in revenue, and that was crazy. Like Dave was experienced in online education. He had 160,000 people community. He was an experienced educator. So we knew how to kind of get things rolling, but the immense interest in what we had to offer was incredible, and looked like or felt like that we have something unique to offer. It still took us a couple of months to get where we are right now, which is we know what we're good at. But essentially, Promptmaster is an AI education company that teaches people how to think faster with ChatGPT. And to this day, we have about 5,000 students from 45 countries, and we're literally a 2-people team. So we have a couple people who are advising us. I literally, actually, you know what? That's not really true, because since yesterday, currently, there is a 3rd-person lady onboarding who is helping us with operations. So now we're a 3-people team.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you're talking about the education industry and the impacts of prompt engineering. So how do you think AI will impact that with the education? And do you think that prompt engineering is a way to go to increase learning?
I don't think it's about prompt engineering. I mean, prompt engineering is the current go-to hot keyword,
right?
But I think it goes much beyond that, because if you read a few articles published by any media outlet in the last year about artificial intelligence, what you will find is that we are looking at an economic crisis or a technology crisis because AI is taking away all the jobs, blah, 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 blah. But I don't think we have a technology crisis. I think we have an education crisis, because it's like it has nothing to do with AI. We are incredibly bad as humans. We're incredibly bad at teaching people how to thrive and be successful.
Right.
Because if you think about it, the small child learns an incredible amount of information from the world just by doing things and asking about things. Because they have a primary caregiver 24/7 looking after them, and they can just ask all the time. And then by the time they're 7, we collectively think it's a really good idea to take that experience away and shove them in a classroom and just make them shut up and listen. And then we just keep that. And now, if anybody does any research on sensory retention of information, listening to a lecture is probably one of the least effective ways of learning about the world.
Right.
Learning by doing and learning by dialogue is by far the most efficient ways of learning about the world. But the problem is that lectures are relatively okay if you're talking about a small amount of information. But the reason why we have an education crisis is because we are learning about the world the exact same way the students of the University of Bologna were learning about the world in the 11th century. Education hasn't changed in 1,000 years.
Right.
But 1,000 years ago, the total knowledge of the world, the total amount of information generated by humans, it was about 15 gigabytes. Now, just in the blink of an eye, during the time it takes you to blink, humanity as a whole generates 9,000 gigabytes of data. It's impossible to thrive, to learn how to thrive, because the current education methods are inefficient. We need to have the most efficient education method, which is doing and asking and dialogue. But we cannot do that because 8 billion humans would need 8 billion tutors. So how do you give everybody a personal tutor? Now, AI can solve that. And then the question becomes, okay, but can I talk to that tutor? How can I talk to that tutor?
Right.
What's the most efficient way to have a conversation with that tutor? And that is the key. Prompt engineering is the entry point, and effective prompting is the entry point that can unlock an incredible amount of learning about the information, about the word, an incredible amount of learning about the word. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. It's past 8 p.m. now.
Also, another question that I had though for you was, you talked about a little bit of AI taking jobs away from the industry. Do you see AI adding jobs in replace of those, like in certain different areas?
Yeah. The interesting thing is, in 2011, Mark Andreessen said that software is eating the world, and by that, what he meant, as he explained on his blog, is that humanity keeps attributing more and more economic output to software, and this will just accelerate over time. So currently, about 1% of global GDP is software, and if we look at the trends now, especially including AI, by 2050, it is expected that software will take about 20% of the global economic output. And if you think about that, that means that having the ability to utilize the incumbent technologies in a very efficient and professional way is going to be the number one core competence at the workplace. And again, the education crisis. We're talking about a world when every fifth dollar is generated and spent through software, which means that a large proportion of jobs that currently have nothing to do with software will be dominated by software. It doesn't even matter if it's AI. It's just an economic tendency. It just happens to be AI. So if you approach the topic from that perspective, what we must admit is that we are going through an immense economic transformation, and AI will not take away jobs. People who are proficient at using AI will take away jobs from other people who cannot use AI.
Right.
There's sense. A big difference. There's a big difference.
Okay. One of the things that's been prevalent in the news about jobs is the entertainment industry and the writer's strike. I was just wondering, what do you think about AI and the impact on that? Do you think it could possibly replace writers in the future?
So there's two concepts to think about, actually. One that comes to my mind is there's an economic concept called the Baumol effect. I don't know if you've heard about that. The Baumol effect was discovered in the 1960s, not surprisingly, by an economist named Baumol. And what they figured out was that there are two kinds of services. There are progressive services and stagnant services. Progressive services can see an incredible productivity uplift just from the fact that technological advancement happens. So like as Moore's law observes that transistor density doubles every 18 months, that allows us for more computing power, that translates to higher productivity. But Baumol also realized that in very labor-intensive industries, where human-to-human communication is very important, and it takes a big proportion of the actual job, technological advancement does not translate to productivity gains one-to-one, because let's say a financial report can be generated in 1 millionth of the time, as opposed to how much it took for CFOs 60 years ago. But for a string quartet to play a piece for 60 minutes, it still takes 60 minutes and 4 people. And it took 60 minutes and 4 people 100 years ago as well. It didn't change. Now, that is the most important aspect of this, because 170 years ago, people started destroying machines because it was taking away jobs from people who were manually putting together stuff and manufacturing. And now what's happening is that there is a natural resistance against a piece of technology that basically turns a stagnant industry into a progressive one. Generative AI is the first innovation that finally opens the door to art and give all the productivity gains technology can give. And that translates to an interesting phenomenon, which is, this is a process that has happened 170 years ago, do we still have craftsmen or do we not? Because 170 years ago, everybody was a craftsman and everybody was like, yeah, we're all going to die because now machines are doing everything. And you don't even need to go far. You can just go on TikTok or Instagram and you can find a lot of Japanese woodwork, which are gaining millions of views. And, all those 5-minute crafts videos and everything. I mean, even I follow a YouTube channel where there is a bunch of blacksmiths who are trying to replicate a lightsaber. And it's just, it's not just the end result, it's the actual process. It's very enjoyable. So here is this idea that's attributed to Chris Do. He's an Emmy Award designer, founder of the Future Group, and is a good friend and mentor of my business partners, Dave. So Chris says that just as with Japanese woodwork, the value of masterful craft and art done by humans will still be very much appreciated because there is the soul, the human touch in it. There is inherent value in the human creating it. And then there is also the economies of scale achieved by large corporations by automating everything, right? So there is Japanese woodwork and there is IKEA, right? The problem is neither. The problem is for those companies who stand in between, because those companies are not crafty enough to make that as a value part of their value proposition, but they also are not efficient enough because they haven't been able to automate everything to achieve economies of scale. So it's actually, what happens is that AI will help us separate the wheat from the chaff, in a sense. Great artists will be probably even more in demand, right? Because I can watch an AI generated stream of songs that sound like as if they were Beyonce. But then when I actually go to a Beyonce concert, I will probably even pay more for the ticket.
Right. Okay. Well, I got what you're saying. You're talking about the innovation of AI into branching out to these corporations in the middle. Is this like the iPhone moment of AI, or is there bigger innovation coming, do you think?
I think the iPhone moment of AI hasn't come yet. It's good to think that, but it hasn't come yet. It's let's say it's probably the email moment. Yeah, like for the internet and for online services, it was the iPhone, right? But it also needed a lot of other things like 3G, 4G to happen, etc. But for the internet, email was the first thing that actually made it real for people, right?
Right.
When you could send an email, an electronic mail to someone thousands of miles away, that was unheard of before. It opened up the door, but mainstream commercial use didn't come until the App Store, really. So, right? So I think ChatGPT is more of an email moment. And I mean, there are rumors of OpenAI being in talks with Johnny Ive about actually creating hardware, because I do think that an iPhone moment is needed in the sense of insanely great user experience is absolutely needed. And if you're using ChatGPT, there is a lot of things that you can say about ChatGPT, but insanely great UX is not among them.
Right. Okay. So I was just going to go back a little bit. You were talking about the email moment. That's kind of when it was introduced. Do you see this as like the starting point, and how far away do you think that big moment is coming, just from your guess?
Can you turn that into two questions?
Yes. Okay. So first, just go back and do you think that ChatGPT is you already kind of followed on this, but the intro to AI, and how widespread do you think that'll become?
Okay. So I think ChatGPT is a gateway drug, because what happens is that it brings technology closer to people who had a natural aversion to technology before. Dave published an article in a bulletin in Hungary, helping out senior people how to use ChatGPT as a talking companion. We're talking about like elderly people who were really just antagonistic towards technology, and now they're like, oh, it's I understand this, I can talk to it. So it is a gateway drug, because then a lot of businesses, we do a lot of consulting, and as part of that consulting, I do speak to a lot of CEOs, and I can tell you that at least like half the time, what they are asking me for in terms of, hey, I want to use AI for this and that, and they don't even want to use AI. Like, what we're talking about, technologically speaking, has been feasible for 15 years. They just kind of behind a bit. So what really happens is that it opens up a conversation, and investments into technology happen in businesses at a large scale because AI makes it easier to understand.
Right. Okay, that answers my question a lot. And then that second question was more of just from your personal experience, where you've been working. How far do you see this innovation coming, like the iPhone moment for AI, in the near future, or are we well before that?
That's a really good question, and I have a couple. I think I have a couple conflicting ideas on that, because one thing that's easy to see is that large language models are amazing. GPT-4 is amazing. It just does things that were completely unattainable before. I mean, I'm talking to like people who are published authors and people who are writing copywriting agencies, and they like, I've been training copywriters for 12 years, for 15 years, for 20 years, and ChatGPT is just better than anyone. And so there is that aspect. But then you have to remember that ChatGPT is just a mouthpiece. All it does is just talk. It doesn't think. It doesn't compute. It doesn't do things. Different parts can be added to it to achieve that, but it's all like a bit of a blob right now. So, and then what I start thinking about it, okay, but there are a lot of different aspects of this technology that are currently being developed. And yeah, there are a bunch of like physical boundaries and limitations, like the amount of GPUs you can use, the electricity costs, the ecological footprint, etc. There are a lot of things to consider here. But if I think about how technological innovation works, I think this current boom will result in widespread automation of many things, like Excel did back in the days. And then probably within the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to get to that iPhone moment when it just becomes absolutely ubiquitous. Currently, ChatGPT is an amazing tool, but it's not ubiquitous. not ubiquitous enough yet. And but we must address the fact that the iPhone moment was amazing, but the greatest success was the iPhone 6. It took them 6 generations to get to the point when it truly conquered the world.
So you'll see it's coming later, but we'll see. We'll just keep getting our mind. That's how I think about it. It just keeps blowing my mind until it stops at one point. And that's where I see as the iPhone moment.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is that it's a rabbit hole. And
Right.
if you define the iPhone moment based on whether or not you entered the rabbit hole, then yeah, we're past that. People are way down in the rabbit hole right now.
Right. I know myself. I get too locked into it sometimes, and I'll have to get myself out of the AI and just exploring all the different opportunities with that. But that was all I have today. I just want to thank you for your time being here. I know it might be hard with the different time zones being in Hungary, but I really enjoyed today. And I look forward to maybe seeing Promptmaster in our school sometime. So
that would be awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity.